Good morning again, everybody. Today we're here to talk about strategy and digital transformation as a part of our digital transformation series. I hope that you guys have really been grasping all of the different concepts that we have touched on. Today is, of course, day 5. And we will be diving a little bit more into strategy. We talked somewhat about it in the transformation overview in our first session. And today we're going to talk about some key strategy frameworks that can be utilized to support the MSMEs as they are going through the building out of their digital transformation strategy. Now, just a few ground rules before we or as we get started. Everyone will participate to the extent that he or she feels comfortable. Remember that you get out of the workshop what you put into it. And as we talk about participation, guys, let's get things off to a great start. I would love for those of you that are here with us today to just drop one thing that you did this weekend that was for you. One thing that you did this weekend that was for you. So you can just drop that in the chat. Just drop that in the chat so we can start our participation off on a good foot. Everybody loves the weekend, and I'm hoping that even if you had to work, that you were able to do something for yourself over the weekend. All right, so everyone participates to their extent. What you get out, what you put in. Of course, the more you put in, the more you get out. We can disagree with one another and provide feedback, as long as we do so constructively and respectfully. We're going to wear our listening hats, our deep listening hats, so that we're making sure that we are paying attention to what other people have to say, their thoughts, and we can learn from each other. Because this is, of course, a place where you can come to learn and make those mistakes. It's a safe space for you to make mistakes, for you to ask the questions, for you to learn and grow, and to share in and about a topic that is really a hot topic right now that we all should be, interested in and sharing about. And then last but not least, we agree to be responsible for our own behavior. Welcome, everyone. I am Stacey Hines, and I am your facilitator for this series. I want to thank you for joining and, of course, for your ongoing participation. You guys have really been great. Let's see what we have in the chat today. Elsa had a spa day. Okay, I'm already jealous. That is wonderful, Elsa. That is definitely a for you moment. Slept a little extra, says Leoy. I didn't sleep a little extra. I think I'll be doing some extra sleeping this weekend, though. Slept late, as Raul said, slept late. Vanessa decluttered. Oh, some of that is really nice. Yes. Did nothing all Sunday. Yes, I love that. Nisha had ice cream. And Keisha said she spent some quiet time alone. Wow. Thanks so much, everyone, for participating. I flew to Vegas and went to the Beyonce concert. That's what I did for myself this weekend. And it was exceptional. Saw all the uses of digital transformation on my concert experience. Was very clear that was a well thought through strategy for that concert. So thanks again for sharing, guys. As you know, I will be dropping your if you didn't receive it, I saw Kathy, you said you didn't receive it. I'll be dropping the manual for today in the chat as usual. So please make sure that you pick it up. While I do that, just a quick recap of what our agenda is for today. And we're going to be touching on some key concepts, some frameworks that are used in strategic planning, which is actually has been one of my focus areas for work for a little time now. And it's something that I really enjoy and enjoy talking about as well. You know, it's not even like I would say I enjoy it, but you leave work at work. No, I actually enjoy it. And I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy doing all the things related to it. So yeah, it's one of those areas that is not just work for me, but also I just find that strategy is a huge part of life, generally speaking. And I work on both business strategy and life strategy with my clients. So today we're going to look at some frameworks that are used in strategic planning, some that will help you to focus on the current state of a business, how to set smart objectives or goals and OKRs. And we'll also examine the role of data and how all of these different things fit together on the digital transformation journey. Now, when we start to think about strategy frameworks, one of the things that is really key in understanding is just, well, what exactly is strategy and what exactly is strategic planning? Well, strategy is really your ability to make choices for the business. And when you think about when you think about explaining strategy to MSMEs, that's what you want to make clear, is that strategy is really all about choices for the business that are going to help the organization to find, create, and sustain a competitive advantage. That's really what strategy is. Strategic planning now is actually you setting in motion the different things that are going to help you to see where you are today and to examine where you want to go, and then the actions and choices that you are going to take and make in order to get there. And I think the distinction, folks, is really important, especially when you're talking to MSMEs, in particular, any of those that may be still in that startup window. Sometimes they get it confused in terms of the strategic plan and the strategy. Sometimes you can have a strategic plan and it just ends up laying out a bunch of tasks that you're going to be executing, rather than actually talking about, well, how are these plans or choices going to impact the business, going to help us to learn or to grow? So it's just making sure that there is that distinction and that clarity as you are supporting your MSMEs. Now, the first set of frameworks that we're going to look at is the SWOT analysis. And this is really where you're now looking at the current state of the business, right? And as you will learn, you can actually do a SWOT analysis, not just for your organization. You cannot just build a strategy for an organization, but it can also be done for your life, right? And the more intentional you are about business strategy, the more successful it is that the organization can become. We're also going to talk about our SMART objectives and OKRs, which is that future state. What exactly is it that we're trying to create? Where are we trying to go? What is that North Star and how are we going to be getting there? And then, of course, when you are executing any kind of strategy, utilizing data as a way to measure your progress and your success is very, very important. So let's jump right into our SWOT analysis. And this is a very useful and I would say relatively common way for organizations to actually assess where they are today and determine how that's going to help them in the future. And so a SWOT analysis is composed of 4 specific areas: the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. I like to think of them as 2 in a box. So it's 2 boxes with 2 areas. You have your internal things that you're going to be examining, and then you have your external things that you're going to be examining. Your internal things are your strengths and weaknesses. So that's an internal perspective. So these 2 boxes are really internal in how you think about the business. And then your opportunities and threats are external to the business. What are the things that are happening outside of the organization that can affect the organizations or that are affecting the organization's current state? Here it goes, explaining your internal factors like your strengths and weaknesses can include financial, physical, human resources, as well as processes that are affecting your organization. And when you're thinking about your SWOT analysis, you want to make sure that you are not just focusing on how you see your strengths and weaknesses, but even how, you've maybe gotten information from the market, from other stakeholders, maybe comments that have come back to you in surveys, etc., that help to identify some of the things that may be strengths or weaknesses in the organization. And if you recall, ladies and gentlemen, one of the areas that we actually discussed in our prior sessions, we talked about being able to set up your digital transformation tools to actually get feedback from the market. That feedback can be used in your SWOT analysis. Right? The opportunities and threats aspect are external, as we shared, things such as market and economic trends, regulations, and relationships with suppliers. You have other frameworks that are also used to assess external, right? Your PESTEL, for instance, is all external factors that could affect the business, primarily external, right? And so the SWOT analysis gives you that balance of both internal and external, although I would highly recommend that you do more than just the SWOT when you're looking at the framework for a business. Now, if you want to do what we would consider a lean strategic plan, then certainly utilizing just a SWOT analysis is a possibility or a potential. But moving into more specific areas that could potentially be affecting the business, for instance, with COVID happening, wanting to look at a PESTEL because all of our environments changed when COVID happened. So you do want to take a deeper dive in potential external factors that could be impacting the organization. Opportunities for a small retail business could be things such as governmental push for consumers to support local business, or a new grant for small businesses to update their infrastructure. So a grant would be considered an opportunity, as an example, right? And a threat would be something like new taxes that are being imposed by government, as another example. So you can kind of gauge how you would have both things affecting a small retail organization. Threats may include larger companies with access to suppliers at a lower cost, and rising rent costs, also another threat for spaces that house that business. And in particular, I know that coming out of the pandemic, a lot of organizations struggled when it came to that, the rent costs. And for many companies, especially those that are on the small side of that MSME scale, many of those companies, they had to shut their doors because they just could not continue to afford rent with remote working or even hybrid, and just so many different things that came into play after the pandemic, right? So being able to actually do this analysis makes a huge difference in how you are going to plan for the business, because when you're able to actually see where the business is in its current state, then you can make better plans accordingly. The Business Development Bank of Canada suggests leadership, management, and other key employees should be a part of the process, and an outside neutral expert may also be beneficial. Now, when this is being related to SWOT analysis in this context, but really for strategic planning, I highly recommend bringing in outside expertise. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an outside expert that gets called into organizations. I'm actually saying it really adds a level of objectivity that sometimes, especially MSMEs, it's very difficult for them to see outside of their current space. And especially when you've been in business for a while, 5 years or more, oftentimes you kind of get stuck in your way of doing things, or get stuck in seeing the weaknesses of the business and seeing the threats. And so sometimes having that objective lens really helps to bring in perspectives that may otherwise be missing. Now, aside from the external expert, when thinking about strategic planning or building out any kind of strategy, it is highly recommended that this is done with multiple stakeholders that are a part of the organization. If there's a board, you want to have some board influence. If there is a leadership team, senior leadership team, supervisors, different persons who may be on the front line interacting with customers, you want each of those persons to be involved in the strategic planning process. And it doesn't mean that they all have to be included when you're building out the entire strategy for every single meeting. Usually what happens is, or what I recommend, is that you create small groups that work together. And from those small groups, you can then now get information out. For instance, when I do strategy for schools, I will work with the students. I'll do workshop with just the students. I'll do workshops with the teachers. I'll do workshop with the parents. I'll do workshops with the admin, and the admin will be separate from like your principals, right? And so that's what I mean when I say you want to maybe, think about the groups of persons that are impacting your MSMEs, and then break them up into different sessions and take insights and information related to the different frameworks, in this instance, the SWOT, so that you can get all perspectives. And it's so rich, it's such a rich experience when you can get all these different individuals contributing to your SWOT analysis. All right. Now, some of the questions that you might want to consider when you're thinking about gathering this information, right? What do we do well? What are some of the things that the organization is doing well? What do our customers and staff say about us? What do we need to work on? What new and growing technology could be beneficial to our business? What government policies could impact us positively or negatively? What trends are happening that could create positive changes or threaten us? And what obstacles are we facing in the environment, political or economical, etc.? And as you're thinking about the SWOT, guys, I want you to also consider just looking at Google or even ChatGPT to get support with some of the questions that you can ask. And you want to get it a little bit even, a little deeper and a little bit more specific when you're dealing with a specific type of MSME, like a particular type of business. That's now when you can get really fancy with it, right? And when I say fancy, I don't mean complicated, okay? Fancy meaning you can just tailor the questions in the analysis to the industry that that business is participating in, right? And when you are thinking about SWOT in the digital context, that's the next layer that I want you to put on top of this. Remember, we talked about strategy and we talked about digital strategy as being that additional layer on top. Exactly. So when you're thinking about your frameworks that you're using for your strategic planning sessions, you want to be able to employ not just the general questions, but you want to employ industry-specific questions, and then you want to layer on top of that the digital questions. So a simple example, this first question, when you're talking with your businesses and you're saying, ask yourselves, what do we do well? You can follow that up with, ask yourselves, what do we do well in a digital way, right? How do we serve our customers well in a digital way? What are our customers and staff saying about how we serve them digitally? You see how I did that? So you can take these simple questions, layer on the industry, and then on top of that, layer on the digital. Okay? Now, it helps organizations, a SWOT analysis specifically, with a visual examination of where they stand among the competition of their ability to reach a goal. One of the things that works really well in conjunction with a SWOT analysis is another strategic framework, which is your competitive analysis, right? And that is where you're now not just looking at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but you're also throwing the lens over on the nearest competition and saying, what are they doing well as my competitor? What are some of their strengths? What are some of their weaknesses that I am observing? And how does that impact me, right? It may be useful outside of just your strategic planning timeframe to do a SWOT analysis when you're thinking about a new project, right? So not just at that once in every 3 to 5 year time frame, or 10-year if you prefer to be on those longer strategic timelines. But when you're doing a new project, you may just huddle your project group together and talk about, what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? What are some of the strengths and weaknesses that we have to consider as we take on this strategic plan or this project plan? When you're moving into your strategy sessions, this is one of the key things that's important. You don't want to go into the meeting. You can, but you don't necessarily want to go into the meeting starting with just from scratch, introducing a SWOT analysis as the first part of the conversation. It's really helpful to prepare whoever it is that you're supporting, your MSMEs, with some of the insights beforehand. So you can send off an email just advising them that, we're going to be doing some different assessments or some analysis as a part of our strategic planning experience. And we want to see if you can gather data from the market. I will oftentimes even ask them to make note of the things that they think they're doing well. So I won't tell them that they're doing a SWOT. I will just put the questions as a precursor. And then when we come down, we're doing the workshop and we're participating, then we pull together the SWOT based on what everybody's answers are. So you get a nice, thorough kind of experience where they see the path that you're taking them down. They will have prepared ahead, and then they come into the conversation with the information, and then you're able to actually show them the result. So here's an example of a SWOT analysis. Right? You see your strengths, your weaknesses. You see that it's internal and that this is external, right? And then you see the items related specifically to the market here. Okay. So what we're going to do now is just a quick exercise. And this exercise is specific to your organization, right? And it's a really great way to prepare yourself to support your MSMEs, right? Just thinking about where you are currently working and what are some of your observations around internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to fill this out. You can either just draw something on your notepad paper or a piece of paper, or if you want, you can create a little table if you're using your laptop. Or if you're using notes, you can create a little table and then just fill this in. I'm going to give you about 2 to 3, maybe 5 minutes to actually think through what are some of the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats of your organization. And then we're going to share with each other items that we think would be really great for discussion. All right. So just 5 minutes here, guys, to run through this exercise. And then we will come back and share with each other. I'd like to invite you to share one thing from each box. So share a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, and a threat. I just need a couple shares. That would be lovely. I'm happy to, if you are willing to speak, I'm happy to bring you on so that we can have the conversation. Or I'm happy to just look at what we have going on in the chat. So let's see if anyone is willing to share. I'll go back to the example that we had here so that you can kind of get a sense of what some other persons may be encountering, right? So strengths, they have a knowledgeable sales team, they have products that have a good reputation, and they're well known in the local area. Opportunities that are there could do well if the market area was expanded. Website could help with awareness, could have an online retail operation. Now, what's interesting to me, as I was talking about layering on, because remember, we want to layer on the digital, right? Is that they don't have anything here in a strength that is saying that there's a digital strength, right? So I'm encouraging you that as you're talking to your MSMEs, that you invite them to think about where they currently have something digital happening that may be a plus, right? So do we have any volunteers? Anybody? You can drop either drop your answer in the chat, or you can volunteer to jump on camera with me, or just speak. If you don't want to be on camera, that's fine too. Any volunteers?
Hello, good day.
Hello, Raul. Good day.
Yes, this is Roel from Trinidad and Tobago, and I can share a little bit about our organization, Assuage Business Development Limited. We provide business development support services for growth focus SMEs, those that have identified growth as their priority and started putting a budget towards it. When we look at our situation in the strengths area, we have some significant networks, deep networks, both within Trinidad and Tobago and within the region, and some a little far afield in terms of Far East and Europe. We have significant administrative support framework in place, sales and business development expertise. In the weakness area, finance, particularly in the area of budget. I saw you had their limited marketing budget, which affects, of course, lead generation for us. In terms of the opportunities, many governments, like in Trinidad and Tobago, have recognized the need to support businesses to go beyond their borders. And we're particularly interested in helping organizations, both service-based and product-based export. So that's an opportunity because a lot of grants are coming up, a lot of opportunities to support businesses, and we want to be right there to hold their hands. On the threat side, the exchange rate is quite a challenge for us. And I don't know how many know in Trinidad and Tobago in particular, we have a challenge getting US, which affects particularly our clients who want to export, you know, so their products and services. And that, of course, impacts the service that we offer. So that would be a mini SWOT for us.
Oh, no, that's really excellent. Thanks so much for sharing, Raul. And sure, the exchange rate, that FX is a Caribbean-wide threat.
Yes, yes.
It's a Caribbean-wide threat. Let's see what BRICS does, if anything at all.
Yes, let's see. Looking forward.
Yes. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, now when I look at the chat, let's see what we have going on in the chat here. Keisha says, strength known as a one-stop shop for business development and training. Weaknesses, limited financial resources to execute mandate. I will say, especially since Raul also mentioned it, that the financial side of the business continues to be, I think, one of those critical areas for not just this group, but also our MSME group as well. And then opportunities, use of ICT for training. Okay, great. And then threats, Keisha has said global economic crisis. All right, Elizabeth says opportunities, lack of digital services in the sector. Yes, that is actually an opportunity, right? It adds the, it's an opportunity for you, whereas it might be an actual threat for another organization, right? Thank you for that. All right, Catherine says strength, great customer service. Weakness, need a proper website. Opportunities, more long-term clients on retainer. Okay, great. And threats, cheaper prices from competitors, Fiverr example, or etc. Yes, Fiverr, Upwork, 99 Designs, all these different entities that are now in place to support digital transformation services, whether it's content, whether it's website building, you just have all these different software as a service or product support as a service that does threaten organizations like some of yours that provide the same service to our MSMEs. Great job, guys. You have your good practice session. Excellent. All right. So now we're moving on and we're going to get into setting goals and tracking progress. So just now when we talked about the SWOT, that's one framework that is useful in strategy and strategic planning to examine the current state. So when we talked about strategic planning, we talked about knowing where you are currently. That's what the SWOT is for. Now we're talking about where we're going. What is it that this digital transformation is going to do for us? Where is it going to take us? How are we going to get there? Right? This is where now you're starting to move towards setting those targets, those outcomes, those goals. And there are two different ways that we are going to examine today that organizations can set clear priorities and ways to track them. So there are two frameworks that we're going to examine. One, which is a pretty common and traditional, I would say, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals, or in this case, SMART digital objectives, are, I would say, the commonplace and where everybody should start. Even if you're not using, say, balanced scorecard or OKRs, which is one of the things we're going to talk about today, you definitely want to encourage your MSMEs to set SMART goals, right? And the reason why they're considered SMART is because they have all these different facets to them that make sure you are able to not just identify what you want to get to, but in a way that is actually going to be much more supportive of you achieving the goal. Because you can set goals, but there's ways to set them that helps them to become more probable to achieve. So the SMART framework is one of those. So first thing, specific. A SMART goal describes a specific observable action or behavior and defines what has to be done. When setting objectives, use action verbs and plain language that is easily understood by everyone involved. And the specific is so key in this particular area. It needs to be easily understood, folks. When the goal them write in such a way that them just so exciting and dramatic and you can't understand it. You know it's a goal, but somehow you can't really see yourself in it. That's when you know it needs the SMART framework. Specific helps people to see themselves in it, which is going to be key because typically the persons are the ones that are working to get to the achievement of that goal. Measurable. Outcomes or end results must be defined in qualitative or quantitative terms. Can it be measured? So are we increasing something? Are we decreasing something? Expanding or contracting? Can we measure that, right? Are we adding on by a percentage? Are we taking off by a percentage? Can we measure that? How can I check or observe progress and verify outcomes? Is it going to be by engagement of customers? And so I'm tracking to see, well, 5 people answered the NPS, the Net Promoter Score. 5 people answered the Net Promoter Score this week, but a month later, after we've started to do some, emails, we had 30 people answer the Net Promoter Score. Right? So can you observe progress? Can you verify those outcomes? Okay. Can the limits and parameters of the goal be defined? Question that I typically ask persons when I think about it being measurable, I ask them, how will you know that you have succeeded? How will you know? Right? Because, and you'd be surprised at how oftentimes goals are set and are not measurable. And then you're off and running, you have strategies out there that I've looked at where people are off and running, they think they have a good strategy in place, and then they don't know what success looks like. So they're just going and going and going without being able to measure performance. And the measurement, guys, is really important because persons have to be held accountable. And what I find in the Caribbean especially is that accountability factor is very difficult. And so then you find that we start to complain about who not doing what and so forth. But what happens is that they just haven't been given measurable targets to be held accountable to. Now, once you have it specific and measurable, then the next thing is that you want it to be achievable, right? You do want to set, moon targets, and then maybe you'll hit a star. Right? You want to set them to be stretch goals, and at the same time, they must be within reach. Consider what is possible for your organization with the available skills and resources. Because a lot of times when we get into goal setting, into that dream state, we set these targets that are just way beyond what we have resources to achieve. And so this is also when an objective person is very helpful. So you would be considered that objective person working with your MSMEs, right? So they must be achievable. They must also be relevant, right? A SMART goal is relevant to the organization, to the department, to the individual, and has to be related to the strategic direction of the company. Now, if you recall, I shared earlier right? I shared earlier that you can actually create a strategic plan and it is not aligned with your strategy. And that's because a lot of times, companies mistake a strategic plan for a strategy. So this is how you can make sure that your strategic plan and your strategy are aligned. Your plan is the how you're getting there, right? Your strategy is really supposed to say the decisions, how am I going to maintain this competitive advantage? What exactly is it that I am doing? What is the value that I am giving to customers, market, etc., that is going to allow us to learn and grow and change the organization? That's the strategy. Choices that are going to give you a competitive advantage. Your plan now is going to be the goals and the things, the relevant tasks and activities that are aligned with the direction that you're headed in, right? The direction of your strategy that are going to help you to get there. Does it make sense? Does the goal make sense? Does it address the needs that we have? And why is it important to the organization? Last but certainly not least, they must be time-bound. SMART goals have specific target dates, frequencies, or deadlines. Is there an end date? Is there a milestone or an outcome? Is there something that you can say, okay, this is how I know that it is now complete, whether it is by X date, by X time, when I have acquired X number of customers, etc. How long will it take to achieve the goal? And do we have progress and checkpoints that are going to help us as we are going on the way, as we're going along the way? So let's talk about OKRs. I saw where there was a question around what is OKRs. So I'm actually a certified OKR instructor, facilitator. And what I love about OKRs is that OKRs literally takes SMART goals and makes it into an entire methodology that you can use to not just plan the strategy, but also to execute the strategy. So I like the OKR, not just the framework, but the methodology that goes along with it as well, because it not just only sets an objective for what you are trying to achieve, but it immediately attaches your key results or the end state, right? How are we going to achieve this objective? It attaches it to the objective at the same time, right? Now, usually the framework shows up where you have an objective, and that objective is then attached to 3 to 5, or in some instances, 4 to 6 key results. So for each one objective that you're going to create for your strategy, then you will have 3 to 5 key results, or some persons like to call them key performance indicators, but you can still actually create separate KPIs to go along with your OKRs. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but your key results are your indicators of success. So when I said to you earlier that I like to ask companies, how do you know you're successful? Your indicators, sorry, your key results are your indicators of success. Okay. Now, when you think about defining objectives and key results, an objective is simply what is there to be achieved? What is it that we're trying to achieve? And you want it to be inspirational. OKR framework was actually invented by a gentleman named Andy Grove, and then it was taken over to Google, which Google is really the ones that made it very big. It was taken over to Google by one of their investors, and Google has since utilized OKR to basically build Google. So clearly there is some magic to this method, right? Now, in the Caribbean, OKRs aren't as common, but in the US and in Europe, in particular in software development companies, OKRs are utilized a lot. And one of the things that was woven into the OKR methodology was that feeling of inspiration, because sometimes you can set strategic plans and you're just not inspired. You just don't feel good. You know, you're getting up out of bed every day to go to do this work. You want to feel good. You want to feel good about the work that is to be done, right? And so the objective part of your OKRs is usually inspirational in some way, shape, or form. The key results now are very specific. So this is where you would want to maybe include a time frame. You'd want to talk about increasing or decreasing a particular percentage. You know, this is where you get very specific, right? So there is focus, alignment, commitment, tracking, and stretching. These are some of the key components of utilizing OKRs. I also like OKRs for businesses that are more entrepreneurial, more startup in nature, because it's easy to consume, right? OKRs are easy to consume. And usually what you would do is you would have one set of OKRs for the organization for the year, like just an overarching set that says, this is what we're doing for the company for the year. And then, so you have an objective, and then you have your 3 to 5 key results. And then on top of that, now each department has their own objective and key results that line up to the company level objectives. And the reason why this is a recommended approach is because it just makes it very, very focused, and you can now commit to the work that is to be done. Another thing about OKRs, folks, is that your objectives and key results are typically executed on a quarter by quarter basis. So for some of the companies that I work with, we will set big objective and key results for the year, for the whole organization. Like, what does the company want to create by the time we get to the end of 2023? And then at the department level, every quarter, we set objective and key results to move the needle along. So it's like you're eating the elephant one bite at a time, which I'm sure you guys can appreciate, because sometimes your strategic plan can feel so overwhelming. And so your OKRs allows you to be able to break it down. Now, here is an example of objective and key result, right? We will increase our web traffic and awareness of our brand beyond the local community, right? So this is the objective. The objective is to increase web traffic and awareness of our brand beyond the local community, all right? And then your key results now, these key results tend to have a blend of both the activity and the result, right? So you're going to hold a pop-up event with other small businesses within the next 6 months that includes an incentive for attendees to visit the website. Okay. So the outcome that you're creating is you're creating a pop-up event. So you know you're going to have a pop-up event, one event. You know when you're going to do it within the next 6 months. And you know that you're going to be putting an incentive for visitors to the website. You're now also looking at, we're going to expand our social media and advertising to have a larger geographical reach within the month and partner with an influencer who aligns with the brand within the next 2 months. Add our website to our in-store marketing and start offering online exclusive items this month. Now, if you want to get really clinical about how you use your OKRs, okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say we take this one here, expand our social media advertising to have a larger geographical reach, right? You could say expand our social media advertising, make that increase our social media advertising from $100 to $250 to have a larger geographical reach. So you see, you're getting very, very specific here. And you can actually measure now the outcome that you're going to get from that increase. Another example, let's say we chose hold a pop-up event in the neighboring community, includes an incentive for attendees to visit our website. This could be increase website visitors from 20 to 500 through one pop-up event in a neighboring community without saying the how. You see what I'm saying, guys? So you're getting very, very specific. You can see what you're expecting success to look like. And then you can now add multiple different ideas to how. Now, clearly they would have decided that the way that they're going to do this is through partnering with their community, etc. Right? In order to make the visits increase. They're going to partner with local businesses and they're going to add an incentive, right? You can play with your OKRs in multiple different ways so that you can get to the result that you ultimately want to achieve. That's essentially what the reason I was expanding the exercise to make that clear. Hopefully that makes it a little clearer for you. Now, what we're going to do as your activity is to set a personal OKRs. So the way that OKRs are structured, or the way that when you read about OKRs and persons recommend that their usage, like if you go to Google and look up OKR usage, it'll talk about how to do OKRs, and usually have organization-wide, team-wide, and then individual, right? And some persons actually take on OKRs for themselves as the individual to say, I'm going to create a personal OKR for myself for this year or for this quarter, right? So remember that your personal, this is going to be a personal OKR that we're using for this example. Your objective, you want it to feel or be somewhat inspirational. And then your key result, maybe for this exercise, you can just do 1 or 2 key results. Your key result is going to be very specific, time bound. You want it to be measurable. All right. So I want to just run that exercise very quickly and then have you share. So I'll give you just a couple of minutes to think through, what would I like to achieve or create for myself this year? What could that be? And then put something down that's inspirational for you. A lot of people have money goals. A lot of people have weight goals or relationship goals or even career goals. Put down something that you think you'd like to share, and then put a key result. It has to be specific enough that we can know what success looks like just by reading the key results. So I'll give you a couple of minutes for that, and then we will continue. Let's see, I have something dropped in the chat. I will lose 5 kilograms by December 31st, 2023. Okay, all right, Catherine. So this sounds very much like a key result. This sounds like a key result. Let's see if I can help Catherine to put an objective with that key result. So if this key result is I will lose 5 kilograms by December 31st, 2023, then maybe the objective is I am taking the best care of my body inside and out, or I'm creating my next best body inside and out. And then your KR, or your key result, is that you will lose 5 kilograms by December 31st. Thank you for that. Keisha, you have to let me know. You sent this one to me directly, so you have to let me know if you want me to share it. Catherine has also said she will do this by consistent gym attendance and better diet. So Catherine, here is how I'm going to challenge you now with this, with your key result of being consistent gym attendance and better diet. You're going to say how often you're going to the gym. And then that's going to be its own key result. And then the next key result is going to say, what is the better diet? How am I going to know what a better diet looks like? I'm going to eat more, I'm going to eat more salads. I won't eat more than 1,000 calories a day. Is that a lot? I'm not sure. I won't eat more than 1,000 calories a day, right? Okay. So Keisha has, there you go. I'm going to the gym at least 3 times a week. So Keisha has as hers, I want to have a baby boy, very specific here. This is interesting. By June next year. All right, Keisha, that were some serious aspirations. So since you have this as your key result is really about having the boy and by June. Yeah. So your objective could be, I am expanding my beautiful family into the life I desire, or something like that, right? I'm creating a beautiful family expansion. And then your key result is going to be that you want to have the baby boy by June next year, so yeah. Okay. Andrea, I'm designing and implementing a systematic and active board of advisory framework. Wow. All right, Andrea. So this is for your company, that you're designing a systematic and active board of advisory framework. That's a great objective. All right. So then now, Andrea, I would want to understand, what are the key results that are going to get you there? What does success look like when you have achieved this objective? Okay. So I'm going to share with you guys, and I'm going to bring it up in my in the chat while Andrea posts her response to my question. Andrea says, key result: host at least 1 quarterly meeting. There you go. Okay. So host 1 meeting with advisors per quarter. Yeah, that's a KR. You know that you're going to be getting, into those meetings, right? Now, What Matters is actually a book that was written about objectives and key results. And they have a website. And what I've shared with you, or what I'm sharing on my screen now, are examples, because they have examples. They have examples of different types of, they even have government, different types of objectives and key results. Here's one: strengthen the family connection. So these are examples of personal, right? Develop a form of discipline that cultivates learning and loving rather than punishment. Discontinue yelling at the children. Look at that key result. I thought that was really, really good, right? Discontinue yelling at the children, okay? Observe Saturdays as a day of rest and rejuvenation. So this is personal examples, guys. And if I look at company-wide, you're seeing a couple of examples here. Collaborating neurology teams, that's more clearly, that's hospital. This one is probably pretty general that any company can use. Achieve fiscal sustainability. And then the key results now: reduce the general fund budget variance from 11% to 5%. Spend 95% of authorized capital dollars by the end of the fiscal year. Spend 95% of grant dollars from grants from prior fiscal years. So what I want you guys to do as your fun work is to just take some time and visit whatmatters.com, because they have everything that is there to know about OKRs, and it makes it very simple. They even have an OKRs 101, and it helps you with the framework. You don't have to get too, attached to the approaches. Just try to mimic it as closely as possible to support you, and also to support the MSMEs that you are working with. All right. Now, just before we jump into data-driven decision-making, which is our final topic for today, I am going to launch a poll to just hear, some feedback on strategy. The first question that is up on the screen is, have any of the MSMEs that you've worked with shared their strategic plan? And I think this is really key data for us to have, because I don't know how many MSMEs have strategic plans, right? And it's such a critical component of successful businesses. One of the reasons why you have the big five and all these top organizations is because they spend time doing strategy, right? So I have 9 responses so far. The general, yeah, okay, 9 responses, 10 responses in 11. Okay, here we go. Great. We have more than 50%. That is good. Keep going. If you haven't yet looked at the poll, I'm inviting you to look at the poll, guys. Look at your poll. Raul, you've raised your hand. Go ahead and speak.
Yes, I was going to say that, you know, I found that very rare you get a strategic planning document, but often in discussion, you get their strategic plan, you know? You get, you know, when you discuss with them, you ask relevant questions. You do get a sense of it, but not necessarily in a prepared document. So I wasn't too sure how to respond to the question.
Yeah, no, well, actually, that's good. So, so what I'm talking about is the actual document. So the answer to that would be no, because ultimately what happens with sometimes is when things are in your head, they don't actually get into action because it's in your head, right? I remember I had a boss that for years, because I am idea queen, and for years I was working for him, 3 years, and he kept saying it to me. He's like, Stacy, put it down on paper. Put it down on paper, right? And so that's what I'm encouraging. I'm encouraging for you as you're working with your MSMEs to have them get the things out of their head and down on paper, because when you're thinking through competitive advantage and so forth, you might have the idea, but when you start to do the research, because that's what the plan actually does for you now, when you start to do the research that is associated with the plan, that is when you can actually test whether or not your strategy is viable. So I'm sharing the results. I have some persons that have said yes, their MSMEs have shared with them, and some persons that have said no. If you have seen these documented plans, then great. If you're in a situation like Raul, where he's working with them and you're talking to them, but they don't have anything actually documented, then this is a great opportunity, guys, especially with digital, for them to actually document things. Okay. So as you can see, definitely the majority have said no, you know, we're not seeing it. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to empower our entrepreneurs and those who have been in business for longer, or MSMEs, we want to empower them to actually get it down on paper so that it's a bit more actionable. Now, this question is for all of you. You can answer as many of them as you want, right? So if you're familiar with all of these, then definitely, you know, you can select. But what strategy framework are you familiar with? What strategy framework are you familiar with? I'm expecting one in particular to win, because since I've been in the Caribbean, I observe that there is a lot of focus on one particular framework. All right. Okay. 12 persons are participating right now. Let's see if I can get any others. Great. I just love how you guys participate. You give me life. It's wonderful. I love it. All right. So this is interesting. We have a tie. Oh, I can't wait to share it. We have a tie. Oh, tiebreaker. Uh-oh. I'll still tell you guys which one was the tie so that you can see. All right, so just another minute and then we'll wrap up another few seconds, I should say, and then we'll wrap up this poll. Had a lot of participation in this one. Great. Thank you so much. We're getting ready to wrap up the poll now. All right, so balanced scorecard won, which I expected. But I will say I was a bit surprised that Porter's 5 Forces is actually well known. But I'm happy that that's the case, right? Because it's actually very useful even today. I would say, however, that with digital, a lot of things are now blended in the Porter's 5 Forces world. And so I would encourage you all to just look at it through the digital eyes, because there are so many ecosystems in place now where you have tech companies making watches, right? So you want to make sure that you're thinking about it in a more dynamic way than we may have in the past. But balanced scorecard won with 10 votes. Porter's 5 Forces came closely behind that. And then OKRs, I don't know if OKRs came in because we just talked about them or because you know about them long time. Whichever way, I'm happy that OKRs came in, and then strategy mapping. And I'm actually really glad that most of you, I would say clearly 95%, are familiar with strategy frameworks. And for those of you that are not, there are so many resources out there, whether you choose to partner with a consultant or you choose to actually go it on your own. And use Google, etc. There are tons of resources out there for you to use. Thanks for your participation, guys. You just, yeah, you're such bosses. You give me life. Okay, now, when you have all of this information that you are supporting your MSMEs with in their strategy building, the data-driven decision-making is now going beyond the gut feeling and the ideation and the excitement. You know, this is where you're separating the emotion and the excitement that often comes with visioning and strategizing, and actually now getting to where the rubber hits the road, right? Different things that you can use to support decision-making as you are doing your strategy work and building out those plans is you can use surveys, user testing, product testing the products in the market, or even testing the idea of the product in the market by utilizing focus groups, etc. And of course, demographic data. So the gender, age, location, biases, etc. of the persons that you are serving. What data-driven decision-making does for you is it helps to create not just confidence in the decision-making itself, but confidence in yourself as a leader, confidence in the team, confidence in the organization as a whole. And this is because you're removing the subjective elements from the decision-making process, and you can now instill confidence in yourself and the company. This level of confidence allows the organization to fully commit to the vision and the strategy without being overly concerned that the wrong decision has been made. Now, I do want to caution you all that while you utilize data-driven data in decision-making, when you're building out your strategy and you're thinking about your goals, you don't want to be too prescriptive at the outset, because you do still want to dream. You want to still have that excitement and that joy that comes from the brainstorming and the ideation process, because ultimately that really gives you a lot of energy, puts you in that feel-good, energetic space towards shooting for the moon. If you go in with the data right up front, then you might kill the dream before it even starts, if you understand what I'm saying, right? So you want to be balanced with how you use data, but when you use the data, you want to double down, right? Now, this example here, which is the Barbados tourism market, they were utilizing data in their decision-making process. And this is very useful when you're thinking through, if you're in the tourism industry, your organization or your MSME organization is in the tourism industry, then you can use this insight to actually guide your strategic planning. So the Caribbean is seeing a 14% increase in arrivals from Latin America since 2019. BTMI is opening a new office in Panama City and is offering more flights from LATAM in order to boost the number of visitors from that area. And they will seek to capitalize on the significant potential of the growing LATAM market. So this is one of the types of data that you can actually use in the visioning process. So if you have data that is talking about a swell of online utilization for booking flights to come to the Caribbean, then you can now start to dream up different things that you can do if you're in that line of business, right? Because it encourages you, it inspires you. So positive data points are great to use to support the vision and the visualization activities. And then when you get into your SWOT now and you start to do the threats, you can use those data points to help you to tailor your strategy and to make decisions around things that you're going to now be aware of, because you recognize that these particular threats are out there. Okay, so I hope that that explanation kind of helped you with deciphering where you're going to be, where and when you use the different data points that will be available to you. So making data accessible to all is a key consideration for everyone in this conversation, because we have probably heard in some shape or form or experienced on our own what they consider data starvation. The Caribbean has often been viewed as starved for data when compared with other first world nations like North America or Europe. And even in some instances, some parts of Africa now that have really taken on digital transformation and have doubled down on utilizing data science as a part of how they manage and grow, different industries. And so what you want to be able to do is encourage your MSMEs to start gathering data no matter how rudimentary it is. They don't have to have some fancy system. They can literally just use an Excel or a Google Sheet and start capturing information. Allowing and empowering employees to access and analyze data helps to create a data-driven culture that encourages collaboration. And employees do not have to be data scientists. Nobody's asking everybody to go out there and become a data expert in order for them to understand numbers, right? We're suggesting businesses use tools to help employees visualize information and make it more approachable. When data is the heart of everything that teams do, they will drive better decisions and drive better business performance. And as you can see, attaching data to your strategy and your strategic planning activities is a key way to help to get you on a path to accelerated success. Becoming a data-driven organization is a cultural shift, in particular if you have organizations like government that have been doing this thing for a long time and may not have as much data harvested, especially when there's a lot of paper, right? It may not be an easy shift, but it is a possible shift, and it is a necessary shift based on where we're seeing everything go. Bean says that change requires leaders to think differently. They must be prepared to fail, learn from it, and focus on the long term. Now, your fun work that is included in your students' manual is about New Rule 21, which is a fashion retailer, and they hired a data analytics or a data science company to help collect customer feedback and use it to influence their decision making. And when you read through that case study, you want to examine what is your opinion of the data-driven decisions that the company made. Now, since you guys got the manual, most of you would have received the manual last week. I don't know if any of you had a chance to actually read the case study already, and you have a perspective that maybe you can share in the chat. If you do, please drop it in the chat right now. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you have not yet read the case study, then I encourage you to read it before our next session together on Thursday. Okay. All right. So I will stop here now and ask if there are any questions. Raul. Okay. You said you did not get the manual. All right. I'm going to drop it in the chat again, Raul, so that you have access to it. I did share it, I think, just a little earlier. So I'm going to just drop it in the chat so that you have access to it right now. And I'll double check to see to make sure that I have your, I think I'm pretty sure I have your email, but I'll double check. Okay, thanks, Andrea, for committing. All right, so I have dropped the manual for course 5, that's for today, in the chat. Please see if you can get a chance to look at the case study for New Rule and answer the question related to, how do you think, what was your opinion of how they utilize data science to support their strategy and strategic planning? Okay, great, excellent. All right, does anyone have any questions for me before we wrap up? We are at the end of our 5th session today. Guys, you realize we only have 2 more sessions remaining? Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for it to end just yet. Any questions for me today? Time well spent. Thank you, Julia. Thank you. That means so much to me that you guys are getting value out of these sessions. Excellent. Good stuff. Awesome. Thanks, Catherine. All right. Since we have no further questions, guys, I'm going to end the call, and you should be receiving the recordings as a follow-up, because I do believe Philip promised that the recordings would be sent out. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you on Thursday. Take care, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good week, Catherine.